papel que tiene un documento que
Okay, we're on Candy
tiene
Camera.
muchas de las preguntas que padres ya han hecho. Y es importante que lean ese documento porque tal vez su pregunta está ya contestado en ese documento. Pero también vamos a tener una oportunidad para que ustedes nos den sus opiniones en una forma formal, ¿verdad? Así que todos los padres van a poder llenar esa forma.
You understand in Spanish?
No, but I'm recording it.
Okay.
We don't understand.
Raise your hand.
I don't know what to say about that.
Okay? So let me say that in English and then I'll take the question over here.
Well, no, that's what I was going to tell you. You're speaking in Spanish, and some of us are not getting the information, but yet you have a translation system that they could translate it to the people who don't understand English. So I don't understand why you're going both ways.
I'm going to do my part both ways, like I explained, and then I'm going to turn it over to, like, for example, when Marshall...
We need the mic on.
When Marshall comes up and speaks, he's going to need translation, and then he can use the translation unit. But either way, it would be good if you only understand one of the two languages that you can have the equipment. In case someone asks a question, it can be translated. Okay? So basically, I just went over the agenda in Spanish, so let me do that in English. We are going to have an opportunity to
Could you give me the agenda?
do an overview of Roosevelt High School and the changes that are currently being proposed. Then we do have a document that's called Frequently Asked Questions, and you'll have an opportunity to review that document. And then we do have a formal parent input form that we would like parents to fill out. And so that's basically how the meeting will go, and I'll be here to help facilitate and answer any questions. So I'm going to turn it over to Marshall Tuck, who is the president and CEO of the Partnership para los Padres. Les voy a introducir o presentar a Marshall Tuck, que es el presidente del Partnership for Los Angeles Schools. Gracias por estar aquí.
Hablo en inglés porque institución español y también si no hablan inglés o no hablan español es importante que tienen traducción. So if you don't speak English or Spanish, either one, it's good to have translation so that we can make sure that all of us can hear what each other is saying. But I will speak in English for the conversation. So hablo en inglés por esta conversación. So I'm Marshall Tuck. I'm the CEO of the Partnership for Los Angeles Schools. First, wanted to thank you all for being here tonight. As we all know, there's nothing more important to a child's education than their parents. Because you're the ones who set the tone at home, you're the ones who are the role models for your children, and in their education, it's essential for you to be involved. So thank you very much for being here and taking the time out of your busy schedule.
That's the one I have.
To the students who are here, thank you for being here, students. We know there's some students in the audience. Ultimately, we're all here. We do this work for students. The effort of every person who works at Roosevelt High School is how do we improve the education for all students at the school site. So I wanted to thank the students that are here as well. And lastly, I wanted to thank the community members who may not be parents, may not be students, but really care about the school, care about the community, and the community members who are here as well tonight for this conversation. So I just want to thank everybody. It's 5:40 on a Monday night. There's a lot of things you can be doing, and you came here because you care about your child's education, or because you care about your education or your community's education. So we really appreciate that. As Dr. Ferry mentioned, the goal for tonight is to give everybody some information around some changes that are happening at Roosevelt High School. There's a lot of reasons that are driving these changes outside of Roosevelt High School, particularly around the neighborhood, and we'll talk through those. So our goal is to make sure you have the information as to why there are some changes that are happening. Make sure we focus the change in a way that minimizes the negative impact, and really make sure that change is not going to negatively impact students, but how do we continue to maintain momentum, but also position the Roosevelt Small School to be as successful as possible for all students in the future. So I just want to spend a couple of slides making sure you have the information that's needed to the changes, and then really open up for questions, answers, discussion, and input, so we make sure as we are making adjustments, we're best serving your sons and daughters, or in the case of students, we're best serving you. What I'll probably do is go through a few slides first.
I got it for 4 years.
The last year that Roosevelt was one high school, they had 600 API.
Some of the slides, and then we'll open up longer conversation and questions and answers, and come back and talk more about the information that we
10. Oh, 2011, 2012. No.
So, just in terms of
So
context as
it's
to
actually
why
1 year.
the change is being made on this campus, this is procedurally,
Here it is.
the schools are informed by the superintendent that we need to make adjustments to the current structure of 7 small schools because of some of the changes in the environment that long-term 7 small schools may not be
Changes in the environment.
cost-effective or functional enough.
Is it too cold?
We received a letter, the partnership and the school principals received a letter saying that we need to submit a plan to the district by the end of February that showed how we're going to make sure that the school site is able to be what's called a sustainable long-term, given some of the changes in the environment. And so the main reasons as to why change needs to happen is really the main is low student enrollment. The number of students going to schools in the area decreased a lot.
Environment.
Make it very difficult to maintain 7 small schools. This is an issue not just in Roosevelt, but other schools. And that's the biggest issue. In order to make sure these schools can be successful long-term, in order to make sure the schools can provide a college prep curriculum with the necessary intervention.
One went up 67 points, but the medical was down
This is the one,
32.
this is the one, that's what it did.
And then we hope that with making changes to the structures, we can help
Anything in the
continue to
5,
improve
anybody
the academic achievement of the schools.
don't matter, anything in the 5
So
or
the
6.
superintendent submitted a letter that said, we have to, as a part of the partnerships, work with the school, as part of the school in a review, we have to submit a plan to reorganize the school to make sure it's able to manage in a situation that includes low enrollment, difficult financial realities we face, and also the need to continually improve
They
student.
destroyed it.
So what I'm going to do is talk mostly about the low enrollment, because that's the key driver for why we have to make change now, and why the change needs to be made quickly. That's really the key information that's driving the change. And the change is how do we go from 7 small schools to a smaller number of schools. So we still want to keep small schools, but 7 is just too small given the changes in the environment to keep that many school sites.
You know how many teachers?
This is a picture that really sums up the challenges that the schools are facing. When we moved to 7 small schools in 2009 and 10,
Week to visit.
the average number of students per school is about 550.
They let 80 go.
And we believe that when you're having a school that's small, when you're 550, you're able to still provide an entire college prep curriculum, which means students are getting the courses they need to be successful. You're also able to provide some intervention classes so students aren't doing so well in these courses. They have additional support to be successful in math, and English, and science, and social sciences, and the classes they need to be successful. And you always want to make sure that there's also opportunities for
Skim
improvement.
at the top, they cherry
So
pick.
when we went to 7 small schools at 550, the
And they
idea
went
was
to
that you could
Mendez and
provide that kind of a program, which is a necessary program children need at that size. What's
Mendez
happened
has
since
got some
then
scores. They're under
is
plus.
the schools on average are now down to
They did not vote
414
for
students.
plus. And Duffy led
So as an overall population of Roosevelt, there were 3,800 students 4 years ago. There's now 2,900 students. So we've lost almost 1,000 students. And because of that decreased enrollment, we're having to look at how do we reorganize the schools to still ensure we provide the best possible curriculum and course offerings to the students at Roosevelt High School. So this is a big, big change. It's a big adjustment to the number of students. And that's why we're forced to make adjustments to what we say is kind of consolidate some of the 7 small
This is
schools
such
to come with
garbage,
smaller
I've never heard
numbers.
more garbage.
Still trying to maintain a lot of the good work that's been done in the last 4 years. We've seen the highest improvements in graduation rates as school campuses have ever seen. So we want to keep that personalized environment where kids are known, where parents are known. But we have to have a smaller number of schools given the reality of the enrollment. The next slide points to why have we lost so many students? So what's changed in the last 5 years? We went from
Look at, he's telling you what he
3,900
lost his
students
students.
and
Why?
2 years before that 5,000 students to now 2,900. What's changed?
He's going to say they went to charter schools.
First, there's more schools in the community. So when we went to 7 small schools, we knew that Mendez was open, so there was 1,000 students that went to Mendez, a little less. We knew that was going to happen. But there's also been other schools open on the east side, where students who typically would have gone to Roosevelt are going to those schools, in terms of LA Unified Schools. The second is there's a large number of charter schools now in the area.
Oh,
And
yeah.
some are
They
in
went to
jail.
charter.
Within a 4-mile radius of Roosevelt High School,
That's exactly what
there's
they
over
are.
4,500 charter school seats. So there's a large number of charter schools that serve over 4,500 students. So many of those students that would have maybe gone to Roosevelt are also going to charter because there's just more school options available to students on the east side. And number 3 is the number of students going to middle school, elementary school in Loyal Heights, just the total number of school-age children has decreased dramatically. So it's a combination of decreasing birth rates in the area, a lot, especially since 2008 when the economy has gotten more people have left Loyal Heights and have moved into
That's
Loyal
what I'm
Heights.
claiming.
So there's just less students actually in this community going
That's one of the
to.
factors that they don't mention. South
And
Depot
so
Test, they didn't go to
that's how we
charter
got
schools
from
because
550
they
to
unloaded them
414.
at Mendez, and they
So
unloaded them
there's more
at
LA Unified schools, there's more charter schools, and the number of students who live in this community has gone down dramatically over the last 5 years. In part due to the economy,
I think
in
what they
part
were
due to other
doing, they were probably getting a lot of the kids in OT.
The next piece of data that we looked at
They
is,
were OT
okay, so what holds for the
behind in their
future? So I think
units.
one mistake that we made,
Look, you're never gonna
when we
graduate.
launched this mistake we made,
They have a
we
farm
planned for
system.
550, but there's some things
And
that were
that farm
happening
system
several years down the road that we weren't,
is
that we didn't see
occupational
close enough. We didn't look close enough at.
The farm system is the adult school.
So
The farm system
we've
is
now looked
East
very
LA
deeply,
Skill
what are the
Center.
projections for the
The
next
farm
several
system is
years
also
for the Roosevelt area?
Abraham Friedman.
And
So
right
you
now,
have a
based on all the
elaborate
information that the
farm
district
system
has, that we have,
that you send them, and then you send them to Mendez.
the expectation is that
But the charter school, come on.
the number of students will go from 2,900
Your skills are
to 2,400
Yeah,
over
I
the
want
next 6
proof
years.
of that.
So we're going to continue to lose students just because there's not as many students in the area.
That's the way you ask a question.
And these estimates assume that we continue to improve graduation rates like we have been. So
Farming out
improve, it
system
assumes that
here.
we get better
And
at
apparently
keeping kids
they
in
did
school,
that
which is
in
what this
order
whole thing is all about. We're all
to
trying to make
reduce
sure
the enrollment,
that everyone knows our high
everything,
schools
their
try to make sure that
philosophy
we keep students in
was
school.
small
But even with
schools.
that, because there's less students in the area and more schools, we're projecting to lose another 500 students
The
over the next
smallest schools
several
they
years.
wanted. They want to
And
unload it.
this is the information that's saying why we have to go from 7 small schools to a smaller number, whether that's 4 schools or 3 schools or 5 schools. We're going through that process, but we need to
And
decrease
now
the
they're
number
saying,
of schools.
we don't want it.
And it's difficult because people have been in
That's
certain
what you
small schools for the last 4 years. But if we don't make changes, we aren't able to provide the
That's what they
necessary
want.
courses
The whole
or the
concept is
necessary
actually
instruction that every child has. And that's what's fundamentally driving the change in the number of schools that we're serving. We mentioned long-term financial stability. In California, you get funded based on the number of students that you have. So the school only receives as much money as students that it has. So the school has less students,
do very well.
there's less dollars.
They do very well.
That's another struggle
But they don't.
thinking about if we really combine the schools,
50, the
there
ones
are
that are
some
going to go to
ways
college, they go to
to
ELAC.
be more sustainable long-term
But
financially, which
they do very
financial is all about how you provide a better instructional program for students. The last thing, which isn't a key driver at the time, but something for us to all make sure we're considering while we're
Yes.
changing and
Yeah.
consolidating and reorganizing the schools are, there's variable performance right now across the 7 small
Are
schools.
we going to be able to
So as
ask
we're making this
questions?
adjustment, which we have to make due to the shifts in
Oh.
number of students in the
All
area,
right.
how do we also continue to improve the academic achievement? And how do we
Is
make sure that
Garcetti
there's
and
more
Wendy
consistent
gonna
achievement
be
across the small schools that do continue and remain at
All
Roosevelt
right,
High School?
great. You guys are doing an
There's
excellent
a lot of data,
job.
so I'm going to pause in a second so we can just kind of have clarification questions on the data first, and then we can go into
Okay.
additional conversation. Just wanted to let you know what's happening next in terms of the process. So we have to submit a plan by the end of February that shows how are we going to reorganize the
Thank you.
campus to go from 7 small schools to a fewer number of small schools. Whether that's
Democratic
5 total
Party.
schools or 4 total schools or 3 total schools or 2 total schools, that's a conversation, a process that we're having right now, and we want to get your input on. At Roosevelt High School, there's a group called the Small School Decision-Making Council. It's made up of principals. It's made up of the teacher representatives. It's got students that sit on that council. It's open to the public, so there's opportunities for parents and community members to come to the meeting and give their feedback, and students that aren't on that committee. That's the group that's looking at all the information to say, what's the structure that makes the most sense for Roosevelt long-term? It's going to be the least disruptive to students today, and it's going to hopefully put us in a position to continue to provide
I saw my
the
car.
best possible education.
George's truck.
And that group is meeting,
key in
that
your
group is
car.
working to put together a plan to submit to the superintendent on February
Well,
26th.
they're gonna have another meeting on the 11th.
And then we'll get answers back to the superintendent on March 9th relating to that plan. And so what we're hoping to tonight again is want to give you that
She could probably
information
key in your car too.
and then have a conversation and hear people's input on.
It won't make any
as we're having to
difference.
make these changes because of the changes in the
It might run
community,
better.
what do we
It'll
need to
be
make sure
lighter.
that we are doing the best we can do to meet the needs of students?
Too sick, huh?
As I said many times, the commitment is to continue to move the work forward, to best support the young people as much as possible, and to make sure that we have a campus that's going to be as successful as possible today, but also several years into the future. We know change is always difficult,
They're trying to
and we
go
know
back
students have
up there
relations
too.
with their small schools,